What? What are you looking for an intro here? I sometimes have peak, but otherwise I just gotta let me cook in the right ways. Good morning, after evening, my beautiful people. My name is All Night, and it's morphin' time. Although growing up, I was more so in the Disney era of Power Rangers, so like Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder, all of that stuff. So, you know, Ninja Storm Ranger form, ha? Comment down below if you fuck with Ninja Storm. We'll be friends. Thank you so much for clicking on this video, and also thank you guys so much for the love on the Kamen Rider Gavv video. I was a little nervous going into talking about Kamen Rider Wholesale and how much I've enjoyed the series thus far and really engrossing myself in this new season. And thank you to everyone that pushed this channel to 4,000 subscribers. Y'all are real ones. My appreciation knows no bounds, and I love you 4,000. Can we get this channel to 5,000 by the end of the year? I'm gonna need your help to do it, so don't forget to like and subscribe if you are down on tokusatsu and gaming content. I've got at least one more video planned by the Ghosts. I have at least one more video planned by the end of this year, and y'all are not gonna wanna miss it, so stay tuned. Yeah. But the topic of today's video is just a little different. Now that I'm growing more comfortable talking about tokusatsu on the regular, we have to open up the can of worms and look at the elephant in the room that is known as Power Rangers. And real talk here, if we're just talking about purely in terms of the definition, Power Rangers is tokusatsu, no matter which way you slice it. It is an Americanized adaptation of original material that is tokusatsu, therefore, it is tokusatsu. Either way, I wanted to talk about Power Rangers here today because a couple of videos ago when I first talked about Gigabash for the first time, I of course made mention to my introduction to this whole beautiful genre of Godzilla, giant monster movies, and tokusatsu extended offward. In reality, my first love with this genre was Power Rangers. Once upon a time, I was just a little tyke going through a yard sale in my youth when I stumbled upon 2 VHS tapes, and they were the Green with Evil Power Rangers special that introduced Tommy as the Green Ranger for the first time. I thought he looked sick, I wanted it, I needed to have it, and I had my parents get me those VHS tapes, and Lord have mercy, I replayed that special over and over and over that weekend. Did I just brutally age myself by saying that I found VHS tapes at a yard sale? I'm not that old, I promise. But Power Rangers has been alongside me for years and years as a consumer. Every now and again, I come back to the franchise, more interested than ever to see what the latest season is, what the latest hubbub is on the scene. I was obsessed when I was a kid. I had basically every Megazord from the Disney era going onward. Power Rangers is in my blood. I would be remiss not to talk about it at some point on this channel, and I'm gonna get the chance to talk about it a little bit more in the coming months here. The elephant in the room in question actually is Hasbro. There's been a lot of controversy amongst the Power Rangers fandom ever since the brand was acquired by Hasbro for distribution, entertainment, toy rights, the whole kit and caboodle. After the last season, Cosmic Fury, we have had no details on what is next for Power Rangers. And a lot of folks are really starting to worry here and wonder, is Power Rangers dead? Is Power Rangers just going to become the product of a bygone era of the 80s and 90s and be left behind for years to come? Ghost dog. Or is there hope for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers? Is there hope for the teenagers with attitude to make a comeback? I want to talk about the 3 main pillars that could potentially keep Power Rangers alive for years to come, and what is next for the franchise. The first pillar of this discussion, and the reason why I'm making this video in the first place, is actually because of this game right here, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. After toiling away at being ball ass at Battle for the Grid for years and years and years, I am so goddamn stoked to finally have a Power Rangers game that I can readily buy on a modern console that is a single-player beat-em-up. I am so unbelievably thankful that we are getting any Power Rangers video game love in the modern age. My heart tells me that I want it to be a, like, Platinum Games style beat 'em up with it's like a 3D action game, Devil May Cry Bayonetta style. When Transformers Devastation came out, I was praying and praying and praying that Power Rangers would get the same love eventually. But Rita's Rewind does not look like it's pulling its punches at all. It looks like a sick beat 'em up with a ton of interesting kind of spin-off stages where you're piloting the Zords, riding motorcycles, and Megazord sequences. We love giant robots. We stan the giant beep boops. It brings me back to the SNES game. There's been a couple of tries at doing a modern Power Rangers beat 'em up, and I'll be honest, I've tried them. Not super great. But this game looks to be kind of doing the style of TMNT Shredder's Revenge, I think that's what it's called. Again, pixelated retro style beat 'em up. Co-op, that's the big most important thing right there. You cannot have a Power Rangers game and not play with your buddy. They are a team after all. And they weren't hiding it at all. We have Tommy confirmed as the 6th playable character after you beat the game the first time. So sick, so dope. I'm so happy about that. This channel's called All Night Gaming for a reason. I am going to be shifting and dipping my toes into tokusatsu. Hell, I'm going to be diving headfirst into tokusatsu here in the coming months, so again, like and subscribe. But I'm a gamer at heart. It's my favorite hobby, it's my favorite thing to do, and man, I am unbelievably pumped to finally get a new Power Rangers game on modern hardware that isn't a fighting game that I suck balls at. So I do strongly feel that a modern video game for the Power Rangers will keep this brand in people's minds for another couple of years. The second pillar of the Power Rangers discussion that I think is definitely going to keep eyes on this brand for a while is the comics. We have a new series with Power Rangers Prime. We've had the Shattered Grid storyline. We have had oodles and oodles of Power Rangers content when it comes to comic books. So if you are forlorn and sad for no Power Rangers TV content or movie content, you've got video games and now you got comic books. Damn, people gotta start reading in 2024. It's a fucking tragedy. But I read the Shattered Grid arc, man. I love Lord Draken as a character. There's a whole bunch of weird timeline stuff, reboots. We've got the Godzilla crossover. We had the Justice League crossover. Power Rangers is alive and well with Boom Studios in the comic industry, and that is an amazing place for you to kind of reestablish yourself with Power Rangers and their story. Again, you've got a lot to catch up on and a lot to read, so don't come to me for reading suggestions as I haven't read most of it. Again, I've mostly read like the isolated comic arcs, like I said, Shattered Grid and all that, and I will always tune in for those crossovers, especially the Godzilla crossover. That was peak. But the comic books for me actually kind of brings maybe a 2.5, a pillar and a half here when it comes to the discussion of Power Rangers. I know that right now Hasbro has gone on record as saying, like, we're not trashing Power Rangers, even though we are auctioning off years of history when it comes to Power Ranger suits, props, and equipment. But who knows, that may just be Hasbro trying to lay the foundation for a new Power Rangers reboot in whatever capacity that they feel most comfortable with. I'll get to that later on in the video, so stick around, hold on, I'll get to my final points on where Hasbro is going to take the brand in a minute here, but I think when it comes to the comic books, I definitely think that there is a strong precedence to not only harp on the Mighty Morphin nostalgia and utilize that as the most iconic iteration of Power Rangers, but to utilize the stories of the comic books to introduce those new stories to new audiences for people that don't necessarily read the comics. I say all of this to ultimately come to the conclusion that I would not be surprised if in 2 or 3 years down the line, when we finally get something when it comes to Power Rangers, whether it's a reboot movie or a reboot TV show, that it will draw inspiration from the years of comic history that the Power Rangers have now established. Never say never. I want live action Lord Draken if we can help it. But the third and final pillar of what's been on my mind most recently when it comes to keeping the Power Rangers brand alive is tokusatsu in general. Let me explain. We know how well this genre can do in the States. In particular, we've seen Godzilla make substantial financial profit off of all of the American adaptations that we've seen in the most past couple of years. Godzilla is also now an Oscar-winning franchise. Godzilla was already on the map in terms of the most popular film franchises of all time, but don't forget, giant monster movies technically fall into the realm of tokusatsu. It leads me to believe that audiences are absolutely willing to try something new and different, especially if we're talking about the conversation of superhero fatigue. The Power Rangers and all Super Sentai teams, Kamen Riders, Ultraman, all of those guys, they're superheroes. It is a superhero genre in Japan, so you know, if we were to bring Power Rangers back in a big way, people would be, of course, oh, another superhero story. But I do strongly believe that there is an audience in the States for all things tokusatsu, especially Americanized adaptations. The last couple of seasons of Power Rangers, I know, did not necessarily do so hot in terms of toy sales or audience retention, probably because, you know, Hasbro didn't make any toys and didn't market it at all. Kinda reminds me of somebody. But in my mind, if you are starving for more Power Rangers as you knew it from years before, I highly encourage you to follow perfectly legal means to consume other forms of tokusatsu. That's stuff like Super Sentai, that's stuff like Kamen Rider, and that's stuff like Ultraman. All three, by the way, can be readily consumed in a number of areas. You can go on to Tubi. Tubi has a bunch of Super Sentai adaptations of stuff that already had adaptations from Power Rangers. So if you just want, you know, Time Force again, you can go check out Time Ranger. If you want Wild Force again, you can go check out Gavv Ranger. That type of deal. Or you can go through perfectly legal means to find newer seasons like King Oger or Boon Boomger, which are newer Super Sentai seasons that don't have Power Rangers adaptations yet, but they've got the essence of Power Rangers. Or Power Rangers has the essence of Super Sentai. You catch my drift here. The fun and absurdity of spandexed superheroes beating the crap out of monsters and then joining together in a giant robot to beat an even bigger monster, that formula is part of Super Sentai's DNA, and of course Power Rangers. So if that is what you enjoy from Power Rangers, I urge you and implore you to explore perfectly legal means to check out other things like Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and Ultraman. I guarantee one of those three will catch on with you and grasp you in a way that will satisfy your Power Rangers itch until Hasbro gets their head out of their ass and finally gives us something new with this franchise. And that leads me into my final assessment of where I think Hasbro will eventually take the Power Rangers brand. If it's any indication as to Hasbro's current use of the brand, they're absolutely going back on with Mighty Morphin nostalgia. We've had ebbs and phases with the Power Rangers franchise where sometimes we will go all the way back to Mighty Morphin and harp on that nostalgia, and then sometimes we will finally focus on the new stuff again. Right now, I think we are back to Mighty Morphin as the iconic piece of imagery associated with this franchise, which honestly, yeah, if you tell someone that has no idea what Power Rangers is and you tell them Power Rangers, if you say the word Power Rangers to them, they will think of these guys. They will think of the original team with Tommy Oliver as the Green Ranger. They're not going to think back on seasons like Dino Thunder or SPD and simping over Cat, which I did in my youth. I'm not afraid to admit that. No shame. When you say Power Rangers, people will think Mighty Morphin. Nothing else at this point. So I do think the smart move is to adapt and reboot Mighty Morphin for a new audience. We can still have Jason, Tommy, Trini, those people can still be characters, we have them in the comics already, but maybe we can introduce new characters, or have just new named characters take on the mantle of the original Mighty Morphin squad, and find interesting and new ways to tell the original stories while respecting folks that have been with this franchise for a hot minute, giving them something new to chew on while also again going back to that nostalgia pandering. In summary, I definitely think Mighty Morphin is what they're going to try and do next, whether it is a reboot or otherwise. In terms of how we're going to see it, there's a couple of ideas billing around in my head here. For starters, I think we need to probably put away the potential of Hasbro getting any of the rights to any of the current Super Sentai seasons. I would kill a man to have a King Oger adaptation, as I do strongly believe that season could be an epic adaptation in the States here if you do it right. You just gotta have a little imagination with it, but I do feel like it could be done. But as optimistic as I am for that result, I want to be realistic and think like a business person like Hasbro will here. Hasbro's going to go with the safest option and choose Mighty Morphin as whatever the franchise does next, and whether that's a movie or a TV show. And finally, if we're going to stick with Mighty Morphin, there is a non-zero chance that we may eventually get an animated adaptation. There was an animated project years ago that got scrapped. I think ILM actually were the animation studio behind it. We got Ultraman Rising, bro. Give them Mighty Morphin. And again, for whatever reason, that original film, it was going to be another Mighty Morphin reboot. That was scrapped for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I think that's the direction to head in here. If the issue with Power Rangers identity is that you are struggling to adapt Japanese stories for an American audience, then we need to take the adaptation piece out of the equation and find a better medium to tell these stories in without relying on these practical suits and effects. Yes, you are effectively taking the tokusatsu out of a franchise that was born and bred off of tokusatsu roots. I think that sucks. I think that stinks. I love tokusatsu. I want practical effects. I want people in real suits. And I want explosions, damn it. But again, realistically, I think Hasbro will shoot for an animated option in some way, so that way they can allow the people making the adaptation their own story. So that way they don't have to rely on whatever Super Sentai has done and dance around that anymore. It's why we eventually moved off of Super Sentai footage for Cosmic Fury, only having the Megazord stuff be from Super Sentai in some way. Like, you know, original suits, that was great and all, but, you know, a lot of folks didn't really vibe with those suits, and I understand. So I strongly believe that an animated series or an animated film reboot may be the best way to go here. I just hope that animation for Power Rangers is received and recepted well with the right people and does well financially. Because one thing that's kind of bugged me in the past couple of years from both Hasbro's franchises as well as others, Ultraman Rising and Transformers 1 are the prime examples of amazing films that are beautifully animated, all done by ILM, by the way, that didn't necessarily get a huge blowout at the box office or on streaming. It makes me concerned because, you know, it's not the quality of the work that's the problem here. If you have seen Transformers 1, if you have seen Ultraman Rising, you know that those are quality products. I'm just worried that maybe the audience isn't there anymore for those franchises. Or if it is, it's just not as strong as it once was. Or some numbskull at Hasbro is just really shit at marketing. I think for a beloved and historic brand like Power Rangers is, I think you need to make a blowout and make your presence known in a big way. I'm half tempted to say we should just get a new movie, but that might be a little too risky. I think if we did an animated series as our next Power Rangers piece of media, that would be the safest option. Get it in front of people's eyes. Everyone's on streaming. You just have to find the right streaming home for that particular series. My gut tells me it should be Netflix. Netflix are the ones that had the reboot in the first place, but canned it eventually. I don't know if Netflix is as popular as it once was. Who knows? Maybe we gotta find a home on Hulu, maybe Tubi, Amazon Prime, what have you. Actually, if I were a betting man, I'd want it on Hulu. For some reason, Hulu just seems to do super well with reboots to popular franchises from the 80s and 90s. I'm talking to you, Prey. So I don't know, Hulu feels right for a Power Rangers adaptation. Comment down below, let me know what streaming service you think it would make the most sense for an animated Power Rangers reboot. In closing, I am a massive fan of this franchise and I want it to do well. But I'm also realistic and realize that there are other brands and franchises out there that fill a similar niche. In the meantime, I'm going to enjoy Kamen Rider and Super Sentai because over in Japan, they're doing pretty good. I don't think we're going to slow down on Kamen Rider and Super Sentai or Ultraman anytime soon. It's just a matter of making that material more accessible here in the States. And that's my continuing mission on this channel, is that I want to bridge the gap between the East and the West and make sure that you are well aware of these amazing franchises and these amazing pieces of media that are coming out in a foreign country that not many people can have access to. Again, perfectly legal means. But the current and premier tokusatsu American franchise is absolutely Power Rangers, and we're just gonna have to wait and see what that franchise has in store for us in the years to come. In the meantime, stay locked in on the All Night channel because I will absolutely be covering Rita's Rewind when that comes out. That's all I've got to say for today's video. As always, do not forget to like the video and show the algorithm some of that love. Subscribe for more content, and as always, I've been your host, All Night, and do not forget to stay loved, keep loving, and have a wonderful night.